as is in, I would really like as if you guys would consider helping, okay? And for the rest of you commissioners, I know where you live, so behave. Well, most of you. Okay? That's about it in a nutshell.
Okay. Thank you, Les. I apologize for my tardiness. I've been sitting behind a train for 25 minutes on Corona Avenue. Couldn't have timed it any worse, so I apologize. Next up, Matthew Shepard.
We hear it everywhere. Corruption in this level, corruption in that level. It stems from lowest level of government all the way up to the federal government, one place or another, one branch or another. We have a government that was established for the people, by the people, and of the people. And it's our responsibility to come forward and make aware of what is going on. Our government works from the bottom up. People have to be there to make known what is going on. This situation with the Veterans Committee has been going on for close to 8 years. One board of commissioners after another has chosen not to do anything about it. There's people that have been involved with it, stemming from the county administrator, commissioners, and other officials. Threats and intimidation need to stop. If it doesn't stop, it can be rectified by changing of office.
Can I ask a quick question? I've heard you say this before, but I'm really unclear as to what your issue is. You talk about corruption, you talk about the the commission, but I haven't heard. I think it would be helpful for me anyway to understand what's the issue? What don't you like about what's going on? I understand everything else you say, and I've heard you say it, and I agree. But what's the issue?
Misuse of funding.
Whose misuse of funding?
The Veterans Committee utilizing it for their office salaries and supplies instead of as it was established to help the veterans.
Do you have examples of that?
If I could interject, Mr. Chairman, there's the handout that Les is passing out.
Okay.
I spent some time with Les this afternoon. There are different funds. Some are restricted on use and what can be used. And at first glance, over the years, some money may have been shuffled around in different accounts to pay for stuff that may not exactly should have been done.
Okay.
So there's that information packet. And then I think later in the meeting, I'm going to make a motion about doing something, or starting something.
Okay.
So.
Thanks. I don't mean to, I just needed a little clarification. It's not that I disagree with anything you're saying, I just wasn't clear.
That's what we want to make sure that you have firm clarification of what's been going on.
Okay.
And hopefully something that can be done to rectify it. And again, if you have knowledge of threats and intimidation, it's not only your right, it's your duty. This was the Declaration declared of Independence. It was not only their right, but their duty to ensure their future prosperity. And if I might, I'd ask for the second session if need be.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Urban.
My name's Ed Irvin, 611. In Watson City Hall has the new hearing assistance. I'm having a real hard trouble hearing you. I heard him kind of clear. I got a VA hearing aid on, and they said the fair cost $8,000. I told them don't give me any over 100 because I lose things and break them. But I'm having a hard time. Usually I sit up here, but it wouldn't make that much difference. I wish, I can't be the only one with not hearing everything, especially when older people come in, or disabled, or younger people. But what I wanted to talk about was I missed the very good program that I believe it's called Talk to a Cop, and I heard about it. I thought I cut the ad out, but somehow I didn't put it on the TV screen or my calendar, and I missed that. It's real important. It was state, county, city, township, and they got together and they talked. And it's big, more of a big write-up afterwards than it was about it coming, because I'd like to have another one and get that word out more so that the public can meet the policemen and policewomen and make a better bonding there for holding down tempers when there's a conflict of when the police are on the scene, and to help the kids. This is for kids to come too, and whole families should come to these and learn to trust the policeman and maybe threaten mom or dad. Police are coming, you better be good. Just it's like we were trained, you know, just to help bring down the violence. And I would have made it to that. I apologize, but how soon we could have another one would be. I would get the advertising out as best I could too. So I'd like to have another one soon. Thanks.
Thank you, Ed. Any more public comments?
May I?
Go ahead.
Me? He's referencing the Talk to a Cop that the Chamber of Commerce put on last month.
Okay.
That's the event he's talking about.
Okay, good. Any other public comments? And if the commissioners could, speak up so everyone can hear. Thank you. All right. No more public comments. We'll move right along here to Economic and Physical Development. Commissioner Coscarelli.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Under item A, I move to consider accepting and place on file the Shiawassee County Drain Office 2016 annual report.
I'll second that.
We have a motion and support. Any further discussion or questions? Hearing none. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passed.
Item B.
Sorry, no, it's okay. Go ahead.
Item B, I move to consider setting a public hearing date for the Great Lakes Fusion Brownfield Plan to be held on April 20th, 2017 at 5:05 p.m.
Support that.
We have a motion and support. Any further discussion or questions? Hearing none. All in favor of the motions signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion moved forward.
Item C, I move to consider authorizing release of the lien upon payment in full and mortgage discharge from the rehabilitation improvements of the property located at 623 Fraser Avenue, Owasso, and authorize the board chair to execute all necessary documents.
We have a motion
I'll support it.
and support. Any further discussion or questions? Hearing none. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion moved forward.
Item D, I move to consider appointing Brian Holiday to the Shiawassee County Zoning Board of Appeals for the period of March 16th, 2017 to December 31st, 2020, until a successor is appointed, and authorize the board chair to execute all necessary documents.
I'll second that.
We have a motion and support. Any further discussion?
The gentleman's name is Brandon Kohanek.
Thank you. So I know we talked about this at the committee, and there was a request to see if there's two individuals that are being appointed in this position, if they could appear. And so just so I understand, an attempt was made to contact them, and they were unavailable.
One guy agreed to, but the other we didn't get anything back from, so I didn't feel it was necessary to bring one in and not have the other, so.
So I'm just curious, being new to this, sort of, as far as these appointments go, sort of general protocol for staffing these committees or making assignments? I mean, is it the commission's pleasure to know a little bit more about these individuals, hear from them, have an opportunity to ask questions before we advance those appointments? Is it just a rubber stamp? I'm just curious.
We don't often, I mean, we don't hold an interview process. I mean, it's so hard to find people to serve on these boards. So when we get applicants, we're pretty happy that we meet the quota. I mean, if we would have gotten, if we would have received, 8 applicants for 2 positions, it might have been a little bit more beneficial for us to know who they were and maybe see background and information. But when we only have 2 and we only have 2 openings, I guess we need to fill the board, and we're having a hard time getting the applicants that live in the zoning area anyway, so. And past practice, we haven't questioned anyone. I mean, we've got people from community mental health that we're gonna appoint later that we haven't asked to come here to explain, so I don't know, I just didn't wanna start a whole new trend on everything. It just seems like another level of, bureaucracy to get through to get that person on.
I appreciate that background. I wasn't just trying to make more work. I was just, I think we have a responsibility to make sure the people that are appointed have some expertise and better understand their level of interest and why they want to volunteer in that capacity. I think asking them to appear and ask them a few questions would not necessarily be that onerous.
Often they don't, the problem is often a lot of these people don't have any experience in these areas. They're strictly getting in here because they want to get involved. They want to do something. I don't know how many people we probably appointed that don't know exactly what the health board does or what community mental health does, but once they get in there, they start getting that working knowledge and understanding. So, I understand, they should probably have a little bit of background, but again, it's few and far between. You get people that want to serve on a committee that some are volunteer, don't even get paid, some only get $25. And it's time out of their day, so I don't know. I understand where you're coming from, but.
Yeah, I'm on the mental health board, so we have a screening process at the mental health board before we come here, so they already screened and if they need a different background or something, we've already checked those things out, so.
So there is some precedent, at least in the mental health.
Yeah, the
screening
mental health
process.
already did that, and we're just kind of going here to make it official, so.
Okay.
My assumption would be too that, now, correct me if I'm wrong, but these individuals apply to, in this case, to the county zoning board. Did they apply directly to this commission, or did
They apply to us. We're the ones that put the ads out to fill the boards,
So
and
they
they
did
apply
apply
directly
to
to our
us,
office,
right?
yes.
So the zoning board of appeals may not know these people from.
No, I doubt they do.
I thought I saw Pete Preston. Is Pete here tonight?
Yes,
I think the commissioner might have a question.
Well, what I was just gonna say is there's some people who apply who wanna be on any board that comes available, so they might write a letter. Some want specific, and then like we had Bill Dodge, who has a whole career of counseling and everything, sent a 2-page resume and a cover letter, and it's clear looking at that qualified. Other people that want renewal sometimes just say, I have to be renewed, but is there when we put the ad out, do we say, please submit a, certain Word document, 50 Word document, why you want to do this in a resume, or, so, or
We're just
maybe
looking
we
for
need
applicants
to.
to serve on boards.
I'm trying to go back to see what his letter said.
So at that point, following up.
This is an example.
Commissioner McMaster, yeah, I'm familiar with Mr. Dodge.
Yeah, that's,
Resume.
he's got a ton of stuff on there, so that's an obvious one. And, people, he has a few references on here that, when I saw this immediately, it's like, okay, but, I don't know, maybe we need to put in the ad, submit a resume and a cover letter explaining
Why you're
your
interested.
wishes or your interest or something, I don't know. Or is that gonna deter even more people?
That would determine.
Probably.
And I would caution this board to try to stand in the way of people who just want to serve the county in various different ways. If we start making requirements, if you gotta have a resume, a 10-page essay, they're gonna say no, and we're impeding their ability to serve their county. We should not do that.
I mean, to us, it's nothing to sit here and have a meeting and discuss things, but you're talking 7 individuals sitting up here that people have to come up in front of and stand and talk and take questions that might not be public speakers. They might not be people that are comfortable with that. So I mean, we're putting people out there like that, and that's gonna deter people from, they're gonna see as though they're having to come to an oral board here and give their reasoning why they should be and why they're qualified. And I think if we're getting people that are willing to serve, they're only a period of time. It's not till the end of time, it's not permanent, but I don't wanna deter what little interest we have as it is.
I have a follow-up question, if I may. So then, for example, 6 applicants apply for a single vacancy. By which criteria are used to evaluate which one will elect of that 6 to serve?
I don't know, at that point, we'd have to figure it out, but
So
usually what we do is it's reappointment after reappointment after reappointment. We don't often, you can set all these what-ifs and all these scenarios out here that you want to try to trip me up and make me think I'm gonna come up with some wrong answer and look like a fool. But, the thing is, this hasn't been done in the past. I understand if we wanna put something out there so that they can come and provide a little paragraph on themselves, let's do that. But, we don't have boards that have 6 applicants for one position. We do not have that. We have 1 opening, we're lucky we get 1. We have 4 openings, we get 1. We got boards that are not even staffed currently because we can't get people to serve. So, this is just nitpicking something, The ZBA has business in front of it, and I personally would like to see them have a fully staffed board to make decisions. I don't know the people personally, I don't know who they are. They gave us all a little cover letter that said, their background or their job, and they were just interested in serving. I take them for their face value, they want to serve, get them on there, they're 1 vote out of 5. But these are all scenarios that of what ifs and what could be, but those aren't reality. We don't get that many people.
This Brandon Kohanek, he has his little statement's fairly impressive, actually.
Yeah, I think he's a civil engineer.
He's graduated from Michigan State University. He's a civil engineer. He works for a private civil engineering company. He deals with Clean Water Act. He's previously employed by Van Buren County Drain Commission.
Yeah, again, I'm not taking this individual to task. I'm talking about the process generally and how appointments are made for my own knowledge and education here, so I can discharge my responsibilities to the best the best that I can. So, following up on what Mr. McMaster said, if there's just, without making too much more work, if we simply kind of define some things in that request for applicants, provide a resume, their level of interest, and any background they might have that relates to the position, is just sort of a very sort of threshold questions that then everybody submits the same information and we have something to evaluate if there is more than 1 applicant for a vacancy.
Chairman, I have a couple questions.
All right, let's draw this to a close. We have a motion and support. All in favor of this motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion move forward.
Thank you for the discussion, Mr. Chair. Appreciate that. Item E, I would move to consider appointing Brian Thomas to the Shiawassee County Zoning Board of Appeals for the period of March 16, 2017 to December 31st of 2020, or until a successor is appointed, and authorize the board chair to execute all necessary documents.
We have a motion
I'll second that.
and support. Any discussion or questions? Hearing none. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion move forward.
Item F, I would move to consider appointing the following members to the remonumentation peer review group for the period of 1 year, being January 1st, 2017 through December 31st of 2017, and authorize the board chair to execute all necessary documents. Those individuals are Norman C. Caldwell, David Kenny, Mark Powell, John Quine, John Rouser, Mark Van Rondan. That's the list.
I'll second that.
Motion and support. You choose who support it. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion moved.
Item G, I move to consider approving the professional services agreement and remonumentation contract between Shiawassee County and Landmark Surveying, PC, for a total cost of $16,500, and authorize the board chair to execute all necessary documents.
Support.
Motion and support. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Move forward.
Item H, I move to consider approving the professional services agreement and remonumentation contract between Shiawassee County and Powell Land Surveying, PC, for a total cost of $16,500, and authorize the board chair to execute all necessary documents.
Support.
Motion and support. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion move forward.
Item I, I move to consider approving the professional services agreement and remonumentation contract between Shiawassee County and Road Professional Services Company for a total cost of $16,500, and authorize the board chair to execute all necessary documents.
Support.
Motion and support. Any further discussion or question? Hearing none. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion move forward.
And the final item in the committee report, J, I move to consider setting a public hearing for the Parks and Recreation Commission on March 29, 2017, at 5:05 p.m.
Support.
Motion and support. Any further discussion or questions?
Discussion,
Commissioner?
do we have any idea how long this hearing will take? Because I know many of us are going, that's the same night as the Soil and Water Conservation District meeting, many of us are going to that. Is 5:05?
That's the
Okay.
30th.
What's that?
That's the 30th.
Oh, I'm sorry, wrong day, never mind that.
Typically, it's
Disregard it.
about 15 minutes is how
Okay,
this,
okay.
because, and I'm not saying it won't, but we probably won't get a large outpouring of public. It's really nothing that nobody's gonna dispute, so we'll come here, if nobody's here to, to discuss it, the chairman will have it, I would say, done in 15 minutes.
Yeah, probably, yeah.
Okay, I apologize for the oversight there.
Any further discussion or questions? Hearing none. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion move forward.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, that concludes my report.
Thank you. County Finance and Administration, Commissioner Muggs.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would move to consider authorizing resolution number 17-03-06 to adopt the MERS hybrid plan for the Police Officers Labor Council Corrections Unit effective March 1st, 2017, and authorize the board chair to execute all necessary documents.
We'll second that.
We have a motion and support. Any further discussion? I believe we have a representative here. Is that right?
Marty Carlson from MERS
Hi.
is here to answer any questions you have and provide some more information.
Okay. You're on.
How are you?
Holy cow, that's a lot of people.
I know, because I guess we can start with the hybrid plan. I guess I was under the impression that we were talking about a couple things, but we can certainly just keep it to the hybrid plan if you'd like. There was.
We do have three.
We do.
Yeah.
We do have
We have
three.
three.
I was gonna say, like, so you're just starting with hybrid, because I was like, I was told to bring a lot more than just hybrid, so. I want to make sure that I'm not off on my. This next packet looks really scary. I promise we're not going through every page.
Okay.
Okay?
I was going to suggest
So don't everyone get
maybe.
really angry at me.
Yeah, let's not get too complicated.
We won't. But sometimes you like background information, or if you have insomnia, it's good material. So either way, oops, let me take that. As mentioned before, my name is Marnie Carlson, and I'm with MERS. And so a few of the items that we're going through today, one of them is the hybrid. And this is completely up to you. But it's difficult to explain the hybrid program until we give you the overview of all of your plans. So would it be okay to move forward with the overview of your plans so then you understand the adoption of the hybrid, or we can start with the hybrid? I will do either way.
Whatever way you can do it that we can understand and not overwhelm us.
Okay, I will do my best not to overwhelm you. But if with your permission, then I will go forward with this packet in front of you. This is just information about Shiawassee County, so that I've condensed that big thick packet into these pages, okay? So that you don't have to go through all of the different actuarial numbers. For some of you, I've met with this council before. Some of you I recognize. There's quite a few new faces, so that's fun. Just really quickly, MERS is the company that administers the benefits for your employees, and from different types of pensions. Traditionally, the county has been in a defined benefit pension plan. Hybrid is a form of that, and so we'll talk about that in a minute. Who MERS is we are a nonprofit organization. We were designed and created for administering public pensions. This is what the legislature created us for. This is what we do every day. We work with over 72 counties, over 800 municipalities enrolled. We have it's close to 115,000 participants. And then we manage over $9 billion of assets. And why I mention all of those things is those are important to you. If you want to look on the next page, the annual valuation, that big thick packet that you have in front of me, is a snapshot of the plan at the York County level that we give you every single year. So, and that is a requirement by state law, because if you give a promise of a lifetime benefit, which is a defined benefit plan, or a portion of a hybrid is a defined benefit plan, you must by state law pre-fund that, okay? And so this calculation that you get every year is the ability for you to pre-fund that. Are you all familiar with what a defined benefit plan is? Because sometimes it's different, so we can kind of go through it. So at the top of the page is a formula. And this formula is a defined benefit plan that is true of all your current employees, and it'll be a portion of the hybrid formula for perhaps the police and fire if that's adopted. So what it is I'm going to give an example of a Penelope. I think we have a Penelope in the room, so I'm not picking on any of your actual employees, okay? I'm pulling a name out of my hat. Penelope works here. She makes $30,000. So $30,000 is her final average compensation, times her service credit. She's been here for 10 years, okay? Then she's added multiplier, so she has a 2% multiplier. We take those three numbers and we multiply them out, okay? That gives you an annual amount. That is what's promised to her. From MERS perspective, we divide it by 12, and then when she retires, she will get a monthly benefit every single month for the rest of her life. Okay? Does that make sense? So from an employee's perspective, it's really, really easy to understand. I make this salary, so the longer I work, the more I make, the higher my benefit is, right? Makes sense. But there's a lot of assumptions in there, right? There's a lot of assumptions of how long is Penelope going to work here? What's her salary going to be? Is there going to be a disability? How long is she going to live? What's the market return going to be on those assets that we invest for you? All of those assumptions come into play in funding that. That's why we have to pre-fund that. So on page 19 through 25 of that thick report, if you ever want to go back through that, are all the different lists of all the different divisions, because not everybody has exactly the same benefit. It depends on where they work, what union they're in, and those types of pieces. When I worked with this board, a former board a few years ago, they had kind of a plan of saying, we're looking at our liabilities and our costs for the future, and looking at what is sustainable for the future, and they wanted to lower to a lower multiplier. So maybe instead of a 2%, a 1.5, and they wanted their currents to go there, they wanted all the actives so that everybody was on the same plan. So they started enacting that with certain unions, and you'll see that reflected in this report. There were, I think with the new negotiation, there were some groups that negotiated instead of doing that plan to go to a hybrid, and that's where you're getting something new in that section. But from that perspective, this is kind of a summary of what the plans, what they have, but you can see a lot more detail. Do you have any questions on the provisions your current employees have? So I'll make sure I answer them. Okay.
I just have, I get my MERS thing, I got it in the mail. In 2015, it was a certain amount, and in 2016, it was less amount. How come when the older one was more than what the...
So it could have been a change in your tax code? Did you change some? So typically what happens is you assign what your tax bracket is, and we take adjustments based on that.
Oh.
Because it's all the amounts we give you are pre-tax, and then you tell us how to handle post-tax. So if any time that changes, or income levels change, or anything like that, and I can't look at your report right now, but that may be why that would change, based on taxes and other things like that.
I just thought it worked here longer, this less, I said, oh geez.
Right, no, I do get that. But if you have questions, certainly call the 800 number. They can look up your specific account, or you
Okay.
can look at it online as well, too.
Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. The next page is just kind of giving you an example of someone working 35 years times 25, what that annual life benefit would be for them on a month, and then what it would be on a monthly basis, just to give you an idea. The next page is me trying to simplify how we look at all the different information. So we work with an actuarial company called CBIZ to look at all the different liabilities. So you have Penelope as one of your employees, and she works, we're counting on her working if she started at age 20 to work to age 60, right? So we calculate what her total liability is for her time working here. We do that for each of your individual employees based on their benefit package that's been agreed on by the counties. And so we take all of that information and then we do assumptions and calculations, like I said, like on life expectancy and those types of pieces. So you'll see the provisions, what you say are the multipliers. So if one division has a 2.5 multiplier and another division has a 1.5, you'll obviously see a cost difference there. If someone can be able to retire early and draw those benefits longer, you'll see a different cost there. There's assumptions like payroll growth, life expectancy, and then there's the experience of the plan, right? What happens if your employees live longer than life expectancy and you're paying them longer? It could be a more expensive plan, right? If someone goes out on a disability and draws earlier, it could be more, so there's always going to be that fluctuation every single year. The next table is all of the lists of your divisions broken down by how we take your bill and we break that all down. So MERS assumes a 7.75 interest rate of return on investments. When we look at that, we don't guarantee that there's going to be a 7.75 return every single year, because you can't get the market to be that predictable from one year to the next. That's impossible. What we're looking at is we're looking at a rolling 30 years. Because again, people work for a good 15, 20 years, and then hopefully they're in retirement for another good 15, 20 years. So their lifespan and their work history and their retirement history is much longer than even 30 years. So when we look at investments, we don't look at it at a 5-year interval or 1-year interval. We look at 25 and 30 years. So over the last 30 years, MERS return has been above 8%. Okay, so that rolling return. So when we send you your bill, we say, here's what Saginaw County, here's what Shiawassee County owns. That's funny because I just presented to them, so that's really funny. Here's what Shiawassee County owes for this year. We reduce it immediately by the 775 assumption, okay? Then we say, what are any of the employees paying? Okay, so you'll see the column here. You have some divisions that don't pay any, some pay 1, some pay 2, some pay 3. You've got one division that just created some pieces of paperwork that'll be contributing 5%. So we reduce that by that. And then the rest is your normal cost. So if you look down at estimated monthly contributions, that third column, second section, you'll see what it costs for active employees to earn another year of service in their formula. So Penelope moves from 10 years of service to 11. What does that cost for all the employees in that division? Okay? So if you see that down at the bottom, the estimated annual cost for the current active employees to earn another year of service is 1.2 million, it's almost 1.3, right? It's 1,272,000. That's after it's been reduced by 775, and it's after it's been reduced by any employee contribution rates. Then we look to see if the county is 100% funded. You're not. So then that means there's a gap between the liabilities and the assets that are in the bank, right? So whatever that gap is, we will take that number, that unfunded accrued liability, and we will spread it out over the amortization period, which for most divisions is 23 years. So we take that debt load, we divide it by 23, I'm simplifying, they'd kill me. It's not that simple, actuaries do a lot more, but essentially, you get that debt load. So that next number after almost 1.3 million is that 3,151,308. That's what you're paying this year to help you pay off that unfunded liability. Does that make sense? So we add them together.
Where are we percentage-wise, funded, unfunded?
We are going to that on the very next page. So if you flip to the next page, skip the colorful one and go to the next one where it says your funding. You are, for the 2015, you are 64% funded. Okay?
And what's a good number to be at?
Yep. So On the next page, I'll give you some more information, but the average in the MERS system is 74% funded right now. Obviously, the goal is 100% funded, but the conversation right now is the county is currently 64% funded. You'll notice that last year we were 70% funded. And if you would have, if everything would have stayed the same, and I'm about to explain why this page is in there, you would have moved down to 68% funded. I'll explain why. But you moved to 64% funded because we changed some assumptions. Okay? So one of the things that he changed, and that's on this colorful page here, and I know I've talked to a few of you for a couple years because we've been telling you this is coming, but to just give those who are new background, we make assumptions about how long people are going to live, what the market's going to do, what disability, all those different things. Remember what I said, all those different complicated numbers underneath. But every 5 years, our board, who is the fiduciary of the plan, takes that liability off this board here, but we are the fiduciary of the plan. We look at it and we say, what happened over the last 5 years? We look at those statistics versus our assumptions to compare them. If there is a statistical difference, we have to make adjustments. It's our fiduciary responsibility. This year, this last experience study, the life expectancy tables changed. People are living longer. And until this point, it wasn't evident in the MERS system. We look at the national trends, we look at the trends in the state of Michigan, and then we look at the MERS system. And to this point, we hadn't needed to change our life expectancy tables for quite some time. We needed to change them now. It's not a mystery. Most people go, yeah, I know people are living longer. But what does that do to your rates? If your liabilities over a lifetime, if they're now living longer, what does that do? Right? Because you're not going to pay someone who you thought was going to pass on to a better place at this time, and now they're going to draw for another 4 or 5 years, right? So that causes your liabilities column versus your asset column, the liability column to grow, and the assets didn't change, right? So that changes your funding level. The same with the other major change that happened, and so these are the 3 in the middle paragraph where it says, what is changing as a result? 3 main changes: mortality tables, because people are living longer. Second one is the assumed rate of return. We used to reduce your payment by 8%. That was our assumed rate of return. We've moved it to a 7.75. Why? When I just told you that over the last 30 years, our return is over 8%. Because since 2008, the market has been fairly volatile. You probably noticed that in the news. So it's usually, that's not a surprise for people. But because of that, we're not just looking at the past, but looking forward to the future and saying, with negative bond rates in certain countries, with some of the things that we see happening globally for the next few years, is it wise to keep that, just look at the past, or should we forecast to the future? Working with our global investments, we did some forecasting the future and wanted to lower that rate. But if that's lowering a discount rate, remember we discounted your bill by 8%, now it's going to be discounted by 7.75. What does that do to your liabilities column versus the assets? Increases, right? So that means your funding level has changed. Does that make sense? So that's why that graph is a little bit more detailed. Okay? I'm trying not to get too complicated. I really am, I swear.
You said we should be at what? What percentage should we be at?
So there's no state requirement of what you should be
Right,
at.
but on average, not on average, but a safe level. Because MAC and Michigan State will tell you at least 80% for municipalities.
Yes, so there are conversations of those that should be at least 80%. Some that say it should be 100% because of all the market volatility. The average in the MERS system right now today is 74%. But there is no technical requirement. You're right. Our CEO sits on the governor's task force for the legislature and looking at all of those things. And there's conversations about what about 60, what about 70, what about 80. They're all having all those discussions now. There is no technical requirement.
I don't know if this is the proper time. I've been on this board for 4 years. Could you briefly, I mean, I understand what you're saying here, but could you briefly explain what the previous board has did? And it's kind of in relationship to what's going on here today, but what this previous board has did to try to bring that number up, and so that these guys maybe will have more of an understanding of you know, how we've tried to change things in the last couple of years.
I can. To his point, if you go to table 7, there's a funding history, so it's at the bottom So that page with all those long numbers there, right after the colorful page, down at the bottom it says Table 7. It's also Table 7 in that big thick packet of yours. This gives you a funding history. So back in 2001, where the county was funded at 71%, where it kind of changed back in 2013 and 2014, there were some changes. There was a medical care facility that put in a large lump sum. There were some changes going forward, and again, from that, going from 63% to 70%, the conversation was the previous board looked at some of the benefit structures and said it's not feasible or for the future. And so what they did is for certain unions, and the idea at the time was to say, we'll start with these unions and these groups, and as the contracts come up, we'll have this plan in place. Then we're going to move everyone from this 2.5 multiplier or 2% multiplier, some of these higher multipliers, and we're going to bridge everyone down to a 1.5. So new hires will come in at a 1.5. Existing won't lose anything that they've accrued to this point because it's state constitutionally protected. The Michigan Constitution says you cannot diminish a benefit. So Penelope, if she had worked here for 10 years at a 2.5 multiplier, now going forward, her next 10 years would be at a 1.5, but she's not losing that 2.5. That's frozen. So that's what you did with several of your divisions. And so what that did is, again, we were calculating Penelope earning 2.5 for 20 years. Now she's earning 1.5 for the last 10. The liability goes down. Assets stay the same, right? So by bridging the act and then putting new hires in, they cost less, right? Because the benefit promise is not as high. Again, that liability is not as high. So you saw that improvement. Some of the experience study adjusted some of that because people are living longer, volatility in the marketplace, but overall you made steps that they'll improve some today and it's going to continue to improve to the future. So you haven't finished all of that work yet. I don't think we've got all the visions changed or looked at.
What part of this is?
So what's the, help me out here, so what's the average across the state municipalities? I know the state, if you're on the defined benefits, 1.5, and it's been 1.5 for decades.
Yes.
So explain to me, what's the average, 2, 2.5, 1.75? Is everyone going to 1.5?
Yeah. No, it is a variety across the board. So I have groups that they're 100% funded and they're staying at their 2.5. I have groups that are low funded and they're bridging to a 1%. I have groups that are doing a lot of changes in between. I will tell you 72% of the over 800 municipalities in MERS in the last few years have made changes to their plans like you. They've bridged, they've put in additional contributions and things like that. There's no set piece,
So
and that average is changing.
when you talk blended, this is what the blended is, it's going from?
No, blended's a different term. So
Okay.
bridged is moving from
This is
one
what we're
multiplier
talking
to
about with
another.
percentages, and,
Yeah.
okay.
So again, your liabilities changed, your assets stayed the same, right? And for the medical care facility, they added more contributions in, so that helped their funding level quite a bit. So that's kind of where those fluctuate.
I just want to add that, if you guys aren't understanding what you said, we're not as good as what we look on this paper. It's because that we're intertwined with the Shiawassee County Medical Care Facility, and they are
Very well
paying a
funded.
lot more money into this. If they were not part of us, our numbers would even be lower yet.
Yes.
So I just want everybody, and you mentioned that,
very
but
true.
I want you guys, you gentlemen to all understand that.
And that's the employees paying a higher percentage?
It is, and they're also, there's a combination of a lot of things, but they've put in additional contributions. So when MERS bills you each year, we give you the minimum required amount. And if you don't pay that, we have to report you to Treasury. That's the law that we have to abide by. But we always put in bold in all your reports, you can always pay more. Think like credit card. If you pay the minimum amount, how long is it going to take you to really get there? If you pay more, you'll get there better, you'll take advantage of, so for instance, last year our return was 11%. So if you dump in an extra amount of money, that money earned 11% than what it would in a bank account for less than 1%. It's taking advantage, having your money work harder for you. It's also what the other plan was, so what they've been doing, their strategy has been putting in more assets to help that work harder for you. Some of that was because they had the ability to do that. That's not always possible in every single municipality. I don't know your budget, but there's also a way to say, well, if we can't do that, we can lower the liabilities so that the assets don't have to be as high when we pay in. So you kind of moved towards that structure, and then some of them also moved to employee contributions being higher, helping pay for that. Because the average employee contribution rate in the MERS system is above 5%. And right now here in the county, it's like 0, 1, and 2. So again, some of those pieces can be that conversation, but you met with the employees and said, they bridged that multiplier versus paying higher. And that was a very good impact for you. It's just gonna take some of that time to.
I'm just trying to add comments.
Absolutely.
So, at the time when the previous board started doing all this, we didn't have the ability to pay more like the medical care facility, so it was a very unpopular decision, that the way that we had to bridge it down to 1.5, but it was either that, or we're falling farther and farther behind, and, we just seen at one point that we couldn't continue to do that.
So, I recall the state mandated employees start paying 5% towards their retirement, and it was eventually ruled unconstitutional, and that monies were paid back.
That may be with state employees.
Yeah, with state employees.
They can't mandate.
So, that wouldn't be the case, so if you're in the MERS system, when you ask employees or mandate that they increase their contributions.
Michigan is not a state-run plan. Michigan runs their state plan, the teacher's plan, and the state police plan, but municipalities have their own choice to administer their own, be part of MERS or another organization. So it's not a state-run plan like Ohio.
If you leave the plan,
Yes.
let's say you work here for 20 years,
Mm-hmm.
and you leave to go work for the state for 2 years, and you come back,
Mm-hmm.
everything's all good, you enter back into the program, or?
It depends on if you're retired or not. Are you drawn on the benefit when you
Well,
leave?
let's say you're not.
Nope, then you could absolutely come back. Yep. It's if you're drawn, you can't come back to the same thing. The IRS views that as double dipping, you can't do that to
Right,
taxpayers for
right.
sure. Yeah. Okay, so that's kind of just the overview of the plans that kind of what was set into motion. Does that kind of cover what you wanted me to cover?
Very good. I was not trying to be interrupted, but I was just.
Absolutely.
No, it helps.
I think it's great.
This background helps,
Absolutely.
but
It's a little unorthodox, but go ahead.
Just one question, because I know that when we lowered it from, I think, 2 to 1.5 factor, and then employees are paying 1%, a lot of the people that are paying the 5% stayed at the before, probably stayed at the higher factor.
Right, and
That's
so
why
that's why
they
we did.
decided to pay more, they lowered our factor, plus we're paying 1%, so
Yep.
it's not that, we're paying the 5% plus lower.
Correct.
They kept
Absolutely.
the benefit the same.
Yeah,
how many counties still have a system like this versus the state where there is no defined benefit anymore? Are there any counties out there that are all defined contribution?
I only know my region. So again, there's several regions in MERS, because to know 800 plans and for the counties. I don't know that I'll answer off the top of my head. I have a few counties that have gone from a defined benefit to a defined contribution, but they still have some existing employees in the defined benefit plan.
Right.
Some that have gone to defined contribution. I have some that are considering going back to the hybrid because they can't open back up to the defined benefit plan. So some bonded so they wouldn't. If you bond, you can't go. You have to stay in defined contribution. So it's really individualized, and that's the point of MERS, and that's one of the things that we represent, that it is really about, what is a pension really about for you? It's about recruitment, it's about retention, and it's about making sure you treat your people right. And so in that perspective, you tell us what that is. And my road commissions may be very different than my counties, than my villages, than my cities, right? Than my police authorities, and all the different kinds of unions that I deal with. But you decide what's feasible, what's affordable for you, not just now, but also into the future. And you can make those adjustments, and we'll work with you to do that. And so from the past, the trend was to keep the defined benefit. From the conversations that they had with the employees, that they wanted to keep that they'd rather bridge. Some wanted to instead pay more than bridge. So you kind of, but for the most part, they were looking at everybody kind of getting to a kind of equal plane. Across the board. That's slightly changing, and that happens as your contracts come up and different ideas. But that's where the plan was originally. It doesn't have to stay that way. We can work with you in whichever capacity you like.
So, as you're probably aware, municipal pension reform is a priority of the current legislature, and it's on their agenda for the year. What changes might we see? You're obviously operating under state law, and what implications might we be seeing going forward?
So our CEO, Krista Rhodes, is sitting on the task force for the governor that is going to be answering to the legislature. So when they went into the lame duck session this last bit, they made no decisions on that at this time, but they asked to have a task force together to to pull some information to get a lot of data that could be provided to the legislature so they can make a more informed decision. So he is on that board, or task force, excuse me, and so he is having those conversations, they have weekly meetings. And so our role on that, because we have the majority of the municipalities in Michigan, is to provide a lot of data, to give a real understanding of what it is. Because when you look at the unfunded accrued liability across the state, there are a lot of groups that are well-funded. There are a lot of groups that are doing quite well. There are a lot of groups that have taken action to get there. They're on a plan with that 23 amortization for that legacy debt. In 23 years, the county will not have that legacy debt anymore. MERS is helping you pay that down. Not all groups are in MERS, not all groups have those types of plans. So we're trying to really make sure that they understand the breadth and scope of all the data, and that we are for local control. We believe you know what your employees need, you know your budgets, we can work with you to get there. Should be standards, right? Just don't promise the world and not be able to afford it, of course, but that you should decide what you want to do. Has there been any decisions yet? No. They're looking at OPEB, which is other pension liabilities, so retiree health care. They're also looking at pension plans. So they'll give their recommendations to the legislature, then it will change quite a bit, and then we'll have a vote for sure.
So what do you think the chances are that the days of defined benefit are going to be gone within a year or two?
The trends right now nationally do not say that.
Right, but we
in
had two
Michigan-
automotive companies that went bankrupt, a state that almost went bankrupt, and now we're left with municipalities and education that are using solely the defined benefit. I mean, do you think there's going to be a move required to go to defined contribution?
That's a philosophical debate that's been debated a lot. When you look at the plans without any past history, defined benefit plans are actually more efficient than defined contribution plans. The issue is when you deal with some of this legacy debt, maybe decisions that were made in the past, promises that were made, were never really funded, and now you're trying to play catch up. That can make it look very difficult from a defined benefit perspective versus a defined contribution. The issue of transferring all defined benefit into defined contribution and the cost that it would increase to all employees because you have to change our investment structure is going to, right now, today, for instance, every pension check paid out from MERS, more than half the money was made up by investments. It wasn't by the county, it wasn't by the employees. And so when you have to change that investment structure and a defined contribution, it's only what the employees and employer puts in, and then what that individual invests in, so you don't have that pooled effect. You lose a lot of that buying power, you lose a lot of that momentum, and so that is going to be a big cost. I know there were some presentations to the legislature about that from the teachers union and showing the cost of transitioning that and how much money would be lost. The unintended consequences conversation. MERS offers defined benefit, defined contribution, and hybrid. We offer all of them, and we think they're all three great plans. You have to know what you want, what's your point, what's your purpose for that, and then let us help you structure what needs to happen. So we're not pro one plan or another,
Right.
We're truly not. We're going to administer all three.
So I guess, can you, for the four of us that are new, if you could provide more information or more background of why the decisions were made or at the rates and stuff.
And just one other comment I was gonna add, and I don't have the exact numbers, and I don't you, but this county, municipality, as many others, we have as many people retired on the B4 plan as what we have now as employees paying in, and that's one of the problems that we had to address also.
And that's on your cash flow. If you look at table 5, maybe that would help. So
I just wanted to make these gentlemen aware of that, that's one of the bigger
that's one of
problems.
your stories. There's past decisions, there's a lot of information, but you also have a very mature plan, right? You have a lot of people drawing versus the number of actives you have. I don't have it memorized, but it's in the packet that I gave you. As an example, you have currently today, you have 403 active members, 136 vested former, means that they worked here, they're vested, they'll eventually draw, they're just not old enough to draw yet. And then another 362 that are already drawing. So on the liability stand, it's like 498 versus the 403 active. So you've got a little bit more. So what that does is, I can talk theory of how you get there, but if you look at table 5, down here under the colorful of where are all the MERS municipalities, how many are funded at this level, all the rest, what are the averages. If you look here, the cash flow, look at 2015 line. You look at the county last year put in $2,778,162. That's what you paid to MERS. You put in an additional $12,000. The employees put in $114,000. If you add those together, skip the next column, what benefits were paid out last year were $6,635,593. So you put in almost $3 million and 6.6 went out the door.
So it's like the social security problem.
But you've got this investment income, right, of 3.4. So that gets you to about 6.4, a little less than that, about 6.3, but still 6.6 going out the door. So even though you're changing those plans, the idea behind what you have of people drawing on a plan that you can't change by Michigan State Constitution is that the cash flows don't equal. So if you're looking at it from a budget perspective, what's going in does not equal what's going out. Does that make sense? And so when you have a situation like that, often when I have groups that that they're not as well funded as they'd like to be, they'd like to move up in funding level, they're in the 60s and 70s, and they want to move up, they say we're going to pay what's going in to equal what's going out so that our investment income is just digging us out of that hole, right? That's a general budgeting kind of idea. Right now, adding the investments and the employer contribution in still doesn't equal what's going on. So the conversation of, yes, we're lowering things. Not everything's been lowered yet, so there's still possibly some work to do. I don't know when your contracts come out for those last divisions, but there's also the conversation of just paying that minimum contribution in the state you're in with a mature plan like you have. You may have to consider putting in that additional to get that funding.
So do you have like a one-page risk analysis assessment that you could show us that says if we only pay the minimums, if we're not putting in the extra, if we don't make any other changes, what year we're gonna be in trouble? Do you have that?
We
Can you
don't
figure
have
that out?
that. We can do like a 20-year budget projection. Remember, MERS has you on a 23-year plan, right? That amortization, think like a home mortgage. Your debt is paid out over 23 years. Next year's gonna be 22, then 21, then 20. In 23 years, that legacy debt will be paid off. The bigger question is, what is that payment escalating to get there? So on the previous page before, we skipped over it because I wanted to answer the questions. There's a 6-year budget projection. We do this every year, where we say, here's what it is. Here's what your payments will be over the next 6 years if you just do the minimum. I promise you that the returns on investments aren't gonna stay perfect every single year. So assuming these rose-colored numbers is not good, we give you other assumptions. So what if the returns are a little lower for the next few years? What should we be paying? What's that going to escalate to? And so you have that. The rose-colored blasted ones are you're going to pay $390,000 moving up to it did it again. So ignore that chart. On page. Sorry, there's a glitch in the system when I plug this in. Page 15 of that big, thick packet, I promise you don't have to look at every page, but page 15. See the numbers where it starts with 5-year phase-in and no 5-year phase-in? Go to the no 5-year phase-in where it says your employer contributions for 2015 for your 2017 fiscal year 4.441. See that? By 2020, which will be your 2022 fiscal year, it will be 5.9. That's the escalation in a very perfect world where the investments return exactly what they will. They won't, right? So that's going to go up. So you will have. So you're going to be the ones that tell me when it's too high. We can't pay that to make that minimum, right? Because we will make sure that, by our fiduciary responsibility, that is paid off. In fact, one of the issues that we have to cover today is a division that the increased costs are going up. The reason why is we have certain thresholds where you can't get below a certain amount, and we will increase your payments so that you don't run out of money in those divisions. So we'll have fail-safes to stop to make sure adequacy is there. That's our job. We will get you there in 23 years. The question is how high does that cost spike? And so many groups would say, I'd rather pay more now to take advantage of the investments so that cost doesn't spike as much over the long haul.
And how much that continues to being a higher percentage of the annual budget of the county. If I'm doing my math, we're looking at about 15% of the county budget right now is going to pay our pension liabilities.
So that was one of the strategies, is really, how do we lower that liability? So it would have been much higher. It's already been lowered because you had some of those groups bridge or employees paying more. You're working towards some of that. Sometimes when you're in a situation where you're low funded, you have a very mature plan, you may have to incorporate both strategies, both paying in more and reducing your liabilities.
And that's what we're likely to see the state come down on. They're likely to mandate some higher contributions to achieve a certain funding level of pensions. Given revenue sharing and how that works at the state level, that's...
Again, I know there's a whole conversation and I can't answer that today, but you're right, that's all the discussions being had, for sure. Absolutely.
That's what the conversation is.
Yep, that is the conversation, for sure. Absolutely. Sir?
I've been on the board, this is my 7th year, and I couldn't get the other commissioners to go along with my program to save money and put more in there. So they always said, oh, we're 90% funded. I said, we're not either. So they were just living. I've been sitting here for 7 years watching it go down now.
Gary, I think you have a different board here.
Pardon?
I think you have a different board, and I think we're all looking at these numbers right now.
Yeah, that's what I hope you are, so.
Which is great.
I'm not criticizing, I just criticizing the old boards.
Yeah, no, I get it. So to give you an idea, because a lot of my boards, when I meet with them, will ask, what are other people doing, Marty? So that's what this next page is, in the blue and green, or what other groups are doing. So are they putting lower benefits to new hires? Are employees putting in more? Are employers putting in more? Are we bridging? So all those statistics. So from a plan design perspective, which you were one of those groups, so lower benefits to new hires back in 2014, 2015, those types of times, you were one of those 43, 52 groups. Bridge benefits, you'll see in 2014, 29 groups. Last year, another 45 groups bridged. Hybrid for new hires, defined contribution for new hires, defined benefit plan freezes. We've had 8 groups or 8 divisions that have frozen the defined benefit, saying, as of this date, Penelope, you earned this. Now we're going to go to a completely different plan. And freezing that. That's a new option that was adopted by our board last year. There are also funding strategies, so cost sharing, employees increasing their contributions. Voluntary contributions, that's probably the highest trend. That's employers putting in more than their minimum required amount. And we have groups that, it's not all different groups, they'll do it every single year. And then there's a few groups, you can see there's about 8 that have bonded in the MERS system. I've got another 1 or 2 coming this year in my current region.
Okay, so you have all these projections, and we talk about 20 years from now. We have a wage study out right now. The wage study comes back in 4 or 5 months, and wages, let's say it recommends that you increase by a lot, we increase them. That doesn't necessarily mean proportionally, it could really throw this out of whack then, doesn't it?
It would. Because your FACs are going to change that first number in that formula. If that goes up, that changes that for all the past time that you've paid for that, for sure. Absolutely, that is a direct correlation to what that liability will increase.
Yeah, that's one of the things we'd have to look at. And when we did decide to change this in 2014, we had looked at freezing what we had now and going to a different, a 401k or something like that. But it was the opinion of that committee and stuff that I was on at the time that our employees hadn't had raises, since 2008. It's like, how much can we keep taking from these people? And so that's why we tried to come up with a softer way of not letting this go broke and yet still taking care of our employees and not really just hammering on them for a bunch of extra money.
And to your point, freezing sounds really magical, but in the end, in a mature plan like this, you remember that it's 1.2 that you're paying out for actives. It's over 3 million paid. That doesn't go away. Everything that's been accrued still gets paid out. So freezing that plan means the employee contributions no longer go to that plan. So you don't get the employee contribution help, and you still have all that liability you still have to pay off.
That was another big factor.
So for this particular group, freezing, when we looked at numbers, was not really a feasible option for you at that point. Looking at lower benefits for new hires, still good benefits. 1.5 multiplier is still a great benefit, a defined benefit plan. You can't find that out in other, so it's still a great benefit. Having the actives going to that, those types of things, those are active solutions. It won't be a silver bullet tomorrow, right? There's not, in this type of situation, there's not a silver bullet tomorrow. There's take action and continue to keep taking action. You've taken the action on the planned fund design changes. There may be some funding conversations that need to be had as well.
We still looked at it as way better than the private sector is doing for their
Yes.
employees, so.
Oh, no, it is way better. I mean, the state made changes literally almost 20 years ago, where new employees weren't getting pensions. The auto industry, 10 years ago, 12 years ago, when two of the companies were in bankruptcy, they changed it. I mean, this is still what we're offering. Our wages aren't good, our multipliers are still good. I mean, it's just it's a long-term cost. That we're not gonna solve today.
So that's the overview, sorry. The first agenda item was the hybrid, but it's hard to explain the hybrid if I don't explain that, and so I appreciate your patience on that. The hybrid plan, so that was what was negotiated with this division plan, correct? Shiawassee. This one. Was the hybrid plan, and so they took a different approach in their negotiations, and what they came to from a negotiation was not changing the current active employees at all, and changing just new hires going forward into a hybrid plan. So, different approach than the others. The other plan, again, if you change the actives, that changes that liability, that lowers that. This is just going forward. So when you change for new hires going forward, it just changes your future cost for the next, you'll probably feel that difference in about 15 to 20 years when you have more new hires than you have currents. And so that will change that eventually. What a hybrid plan is a defined benefit, so a portion right there. And I believe they went to the 1.5 multiplier for the hybrid. Yes, 1.5, but then they added a defined contribution portion on as well. So the employer and employee put in for a defined contribution, which is where the employee puts in, the employer doesn't put anything in, and the employee puts in 3%. So instead of them putting it to the defined benefit portion of it, they're putting it into investments.
So they're mandated 3%.
3%. Yep.
And they're in
And that's
two funding programs.
but it doesn't go towards the funding of the defined benefit, that
No,
1.5.
it's just for
It just goes to their
And
investments.
that's we don't match that at all.
You don't match that at all. It's a 1.5 and then that 3 over there, and the hybrid for new hires only. The existing are staying right where they are at the 2.5 multiplier. So that's that type of plan you would, if you again ratify that contract, would then adopt that type of paperwork for MERS so that we would know those provisions so we could calculate those costs when you hire someone new. There was a challenge because I guess in the contract it was backdated previous year before, so it said effective of March 1 of last year, but that was never.
Sure, the January one.
No, it was effective January 1st, and because it wasn't resolved before year end, the effective date becomes March 1st this year.
Okay. So, you don't want to retro back, is what we're saying, so you're going to want to make it effective as when you actually ratify it.
And I believe this is the last group, and once we get this all ratified, correct, Mr. Chairman, then we have everybody in the county on the same playing level, so to speak, so.
The 1.5 and then the 3%.
Yeah, I mean, there's, through union negotiations, you know, there's some that are paying in that, but now we have everybody. So when it first started out, there was groups that were getting better benefits than others, and now everything's on the same playing field once this is ratified.
For the new hires. This is different than the other groups, because you had your existing new 2.15. This group, they will stay in the 2.5. It's only for new hires, so I do need to clarify it's different than that plan, from that perspective.
So the new hires that are police are gonna be the same as the new hires in clerk's office, treasurer's office?
As far as the 1.5 multiplier,
Yes.
they will also then have that defined contribution portion, so it'll be a different plan, but.
Right, but it'll be similar in.
Same multiplier, correct. Except for we had one division that they had to carve out, but that's existing. So they just didn't change the active like the other groups, is really the main difference.
That was what the nurses, was it?
No, the same division, it's just
Oh,
one of
okay.
them, they kept it, but they went to a 5% contribution rate. But they had the 2.5 multiplier.
All right, let's vote on this motion now, since I think we kind of understand what the hybrid plan is, and then right now what this, I believe, is this is the resolution, which is the contract that we're accepting, and then the second is going to be the MERS valuation request, which is the change from what we're at currently to this is the new valuation that MERS is gonna give us? You probably have to look at this paper to see. Here. This is
Okay.
our agreement
Right.
with the sheriff's office and that union.
Yep.
And then this would be what you guys are evaluating, what this is gonna,
Oh, so that they're paying for that valuation?
Yes.
Yep. In order, yeah.
okay.
Yep.
That's the valuation set at the 1.5 and the.
Yep, that's for the hybrid. Yep.
All right.
So, item A, we do have a motion and support. We've
Yes.
had plenty of discussion.
That is the agreement with, that's the agreement with the POLC that we're accepting.
All in favor of this, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion moves forward. Item B.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Let's move on to item B. I move to consider authorizing the MERS valuation request for a benefit change for the Police Officers Labor Council Corrections Unit in conjunction with the adoption of the MERS hybrid plan at a cost of $400 and authorize the board chair to execute all necessary documents.
Second.
We have a motion and support. Further discussion or questions?
Yes, I believe that's what she explained, which was the 1.5 and the 3.
Hearing none. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion moves forward. Item C.
I move to consider authorizing the MERS Administrative Services Agreement regarding the treatment of the pension benefits for the county employees transferring into jobs with bridge benefits and authorize the board chair to execute all necessary documents.
Second.
We have motion and support. Any further discussion or questions?
Again, just one sentence again on what this does, it was covered.
No, it was not.
No, this was not
Would you like
covered.
me to cover that?
That's
would, please.
Okay. So what happens is, the way the plan document reads is if someone transfers, so let's say Penelope worked in Division 18 and she gets a new position in Division 20, okay? And there's different multipliers or there's different changes. They change at different times, different unions, different contracts. All of her time goes to wherever she chose to move to. You're saying that our intention was if Penelope bridged and she had that 2.5 for her 10 years and then the last 5 years have been at this 1.5, we don't want all of her time to move from 1.5 and lose all that time. We had the understanding with the employees that they would keep that bridge part regardless of if we promoted them to a new position. It's just that.
So it's grandfathering.
It's grandfathering what they've accrued.
Protecting what they
And
have.
they do it with their eyes wide open.
Yep, it's the ability to promote from within. Again, you're acknowledging you're keeping that past debt, but again, that's something they've accrued. It's just making sure that we understand that.
All right. All those in favor?
Those in favor signify. Is there any more discussion? All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye. Any opposed?
Some numbers guys like this kind of discussion.
I feel so educated now.
Yeah.
It's just busting right out of my head.
You damn like this stuff, you damn like this stuff, don't you?
Item D,
All right.
wake up.
I move to consider authorizing a contract with NetSource
Thank you.
to provide web application development services to the county for a one-time cost of $8,250, an annual website hosting fees of $300 per year, and authorize the board chair to execute all necessary documents.
Second.
Motion and support. Any discussion? Hearing none. All in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion moves forward. And by the way, before we go on, thank you very much. That was extremely helpful
Okay.
and long.
It's hard to explain.
It really wasn't long compared to what we've been into before, but.
We've had long conversations, haven't we?
Thanks.
All right, item E. I move to consider authorizing the front of the court in collaboration with the sheriff's office to hire a full-time deputy to be assigned to the front of the court office to assist with child support enforcement. The front of the court has access to state cooperative reimbursement program grant funding that will pay 66% of the cost, with grant funding being sought to cover the remainder and authorize the board chair to execute all necessary documents.
Second.
Okay, motion and support. Any discussion, questions? Hearing none. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion moves forward.
I move to consider authorizing the county clerk's office to hire one deputy circuit court clerk to refill a vacancy at pay grade 3 on the rise salary schedule with a range of $24,774 to $30,309, and authorize the board chair to execute all necessary documents.
Second.
Motion and support. Any further discussion or questions? Hearing none. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passed. Move forward.
Item G, I move to consider authorizing the acceptance of a grant between the state of Michigan and the Shiawassee County Clerk's Office to purchase a new voting system, which includes precinct tabulators, absent voter counting board tabulators, accessible voting devices, and related election management system software in the amount of $240,128, and authorize the clerk to execute all necessary documents.
We have a motion and support. Any discussion?
Yes.
And I also, but go ahead.
Yes. What is the difference in the systems? There was 2 different systems, my
There's been
understanding. Okay, 3. My understanding is the clerks are against the system. Do we have any
And I knew there might be
backlash? Yeah.
Oh, I understand that there may be, because the current system that we are having right now is called ES&S. And then there was a company called Dominion/Election Source, and then Hart. I ruled Hart out after going to Livingston County with several of the clerks because their costs were astronomical. There would be no way we would be able to, for the 6 to 10 year, to pay that. And so then, let me give you a little history. Prior to me taking office, both Dominion and ES&S reached out to myself, and I had explained and was very honest with them. This is not an area that I'm extremely strong in, and so I have reached out to other counties. I have reached out to the Election Bureau, and I have reached out to the state. And when I'm talking with other counties, I'm talking to seasoned clerks, because elections is a monster of itself, and the clerk's offices had to be, all over the state, has to be more involved than they used to ever have to be. And so with that, ES&S is who we currently have. Now, I held a vendor day on February 22nd, and there took 4 phone calls to ES&S just to even confirm. I was terrified that they weren't even going to show up on the day of. And so, but they did, and they had a presentation, and then Dominion was also there. Dominion has put me to resources as far as giving me names and numbers and directing me to other counties that were able to help me with the programming. I have a May election, and I've been very honest that I don't understand all of what I am doing, and I need someone to hold my hand and show me. I can go for training, but until you are walking through the steps of an election, as small as something as 4 precincts, there's a lot involved. I have yet to hear from ES&S since even the vendor day. I have had Oakland County's election coordinator up here to help me program and walk me through things, explain things. We've had a very in-depth conversation as to all 3 vendors. I have had meetings with the local clerks, explained to them that I am looking at something completely different than they are looking at. They are looking at the actual equipment, and I understand that. But what I have to look at is the actual programming and the service that we're getting as a county. I don't get a forgiven pass if I screw up on an election. We get hit with a fine, I get penalized, and it doesn't look good for me and for you. ES&S, I haven't heard from them. And I know that the actual equipment is what my clerks want. They've had it for 22 years. I had a meeting with them last week. I explained everything. I do know that the unanimous vote has been ES&S, and I knew Dominion has been there, given me resources, has helped me, has walked me through things. I've talked to Election Bureau because I thought, okay, you know, they're all vying for your business, and they have assured me, I mean, the clerks I've reached out to and spoken to, some counties are making a switch. Gratiot County, Saginaw County is going with Dominion. Our surrounding counties, some are making switches because of the poor service that they make promises. ES&S has made promises in the past, has not followed through. I can't afford that. I need someone that's going to be answering my phone, the phone when I call, and I've had that every single time I've called Dominion. And so that is huge for me. And I explained that to the clerks. Change is never good, good golly. I know that after 3 months, as well as you do, that people do not embrace change very well. And Dominion has been, they were in the middle of the road, is the 6 to 10 years. It's negotiable. We've talked about things. I am not my predecessor who coded everything. That is not something I'm interested in doing. A lot of counties of our size usually aren't. ES&S charges double to do the programming. This small little election I would have done for May could have run us $13,000, $14,000. I had the Oakland County election coordinator come in on a Saturday with me, and he programmed for $750. So, I mean, granted, he's doing that on the side because why learn something that's going, the systems are going away. So this is weighed heavily on me. I've been on it since meetings and investigating. As far as actual equipment, there aren't that many differences. ES&S makes theirs for proprietary reasons specifically. Anything that needs to be replaced or repaired, there are fees. And Dominion has things that we can replace, a tablet or a printer or something right off the shelf. They can buy paper right off the shelf. I mean, these are all factors. And I had a nice meeting with the city clerk of Owasso yesterday. I knew that there was going to be some blowback because of the change. And she and I just talked openly, and she certainly understands my concerns. And like I said, this lays on me. An election and its success falls wholly on the clerk. So that is why I'm choosing Dominion.
Is that it? Yeah. I've actually had a number of conversations with various clerks around the county, and by calling me, they were calling me. Why they chose me, I don't know, but they did. And honestly, they were very respectful, and they do understand you have to make a decision. But what it boiled down to is three basic differences between the two programs. And what I gathered from the conversations that I was having, ES&S is what they're used to. That's what it boils down to. They're used to using those machines. The new machines are much better, faster, and they're familiar with ES&S. That's really the gist of what I got from that. They're familiar with it. There's not the huge learning curve there. But, as you already stated, ES&S is much faster, possibly, than Dominion. They tabulate at what I've gathered is 11 votes per minute versus Dominion's 3 votes per minute.
That's not,
Well, that's what it's showing in a chart. I'm not going to debate with you. I'm relaying the information that I got and the basic differences. And the chart that I was shown was Dominion processes at 3 per minute and ES&S at 11.
Is that as ballots being fed in, or at the end of the night when the tape's being run?
You got me on that.
I asked about that with Dominion, and the numbers that they have to give an actuary as far as all the different ballot sizes, and that figure is generated on the largest ballot size that they have to run through the tabulator.
Okay.
So that's
The
during
other
the election
difference-
process when you're putting it in.
Yes, but that's not the normal election. They don't normally have that large of a ballot.
The other difference, which I totally understand, and so do the clerks, as you've already stated, ES&S is very poor customer service at this point. Dominion has provided you with much better customer services, which is what you're gonna need, obviously, to, carry this out, carry out your task. But the bigger thing that, the biggest thing that I see in this, and that I think the commission would probably appreciate, is that Dominion is approximately half the cost of programming that ES&S is. The new system cost, the new ES&S system, even though they're familiar with it, and it appears to be a faster system, is double the cost of Dominion. So Dominion with better customer service and obviously a cheaper programming, they're able to teach you what you need to know. I think what I got from a very reliable clerk, as well as you, is that you have to make the decision and you're responsible for it, and you're going to do the best you can with it, even though you were outvoted unanimously. Every clerk in the county wanted ES&S. But like I said in the beginning, I understand that. They're comfortable with it. They're comfortable with that system. Even though it's going to be new, they're comfortable with those machines. So yes, you probably are going to get blowback, but it's ultimately your decision.
May I add that Dominion was everyone's second choice?
Right, exactly.
So-
ES&S was their first choice.
I've got
So-
some questions.
Go ahead.
Thank you. Will we have, say we approve this tomorrow, will we have these new machines by the May election?
No.
So-
That's why I had someone help me with the programming.
Okay, so these don't factor into that May election one way or the other?
No.
My second question is, what happens post 6 to 10 years, what happens to that price? Okay, I understand the initial cost is, you say half
Programming, yes.
program, okay, so what happens
Not the
after 6 to
machine.
10? Because I heard just the opposite. Now, I didn't back up it with research, but I heard that the cost balloons out of control after the 6 to 10 years, and more, in fact, costs more after. So I feel like I need to see these numbers. I just don't, if I have township employee or township clerks unanimously saying, we prefer one thing over another, and then I vote one way or the other without feeling like I have enough information to make that vote. I don't feel like I can do that. And I ask my third question, what is it that makes these township clerks unanimously for the ES&S? What kind of concerns were they relating to you in that meeting?
Mr. McMasters, would you maybe be able to, I don't know. I mean, other than don't want to change,
What did they say in the meeting? They just said...
nothing. We talked about different concerns. And then I had to leave because I had a meeting with Judge Dignan. So, and it wasn't my meeting, it was their meeting, and I was basically invited to hear their,
Okay, so your vendor day you had, were they at your vendor day? Did individual township city clerks come to your vendor day?
yes, they did.
So, explain vendor day. So, you're out at Caledonia Township Hall?
Correct. ES&S did a demonstration of their
Okay.
equipment as well as Dominion.
Okay.
It went very well. Now, ES&S, they did a very nice presentation. I haven't heard from them. I mean, it took me 4 phone calls to say, are you coming? I mean, I'm preparing things for all these people that are taking time off work and things like that.
Okay, so the cost, if I can get this straight here, there's the grant that comes from the state,
Yes.
and that pays for the equipment.
They match whichever vendor we pick.
Okay, and then we have programming costs on year 1, or does that kick in on year 6 through 10 that we have to pay programming costs? Because, or is that additional equipment costs, or?
No, there's no additional equipment.
Okay, so you keep talking about the year 6 to 10. What are we paying year 6 through 10? That's
Those,
different.
all vendors are saying that they're negotiable. So
Okay,
we're not
so
getting, we're
what
not
does that
getting
mean? Like the
any,
machine breaks down and they have to come out?
oh no, like they would replace that.
Okay, so what are we paying for year 6 through 10? I don't understand that part.
Is it programming increased cost? Reprogramming or what?
Because
Because the machines all cost.
The grant's buying machines, right? Okay.
And they're all comparable. All three vendors are
Okay.
comparable.
So then what are costs that incurs your 6 through 10?
I mean, the maintenance and the programming and,
Okay, and then with that, all three companies have been able to give you quotes for what is gonna be your 6 through 10?
well, I haven't heard anything from ES&S.
Okay.
And Dominion gave me an 18,000, and that is negotiable, and Hart is just astronomical.
Too expensive.
Yeah. The other thing I like about Dominion is they are located in Michigan, and they have more people between both other vendors on the ground on election day and employed with their company. And every time anyone, has called them, everybody has raved about their customer service. They've been able on election day to have something, I lost my key, they get it, I have a tabulator having an issue, someone's there within a half an hour.
So Bureau of Elections in Lansing, obviously they can't do it, private companies bidding and say, you should go with product A. What have they told you though about your choice?
Bureau of Elections scored the highest out of all three vendors on all their standardizations that they were looking for.
Can I ask you a question about programming? Is that something that we'll always have to have somebody come in to program these, or is that something that you will learn or that we can outsource? Say this, someone, if it's RESD or somebody else to come in that would be cheaper, or are these the only people that can program these things? Is that something you can learn?
Eventually, and that's what I was talking with Dominion this afternoon and saying, is this something that is negotiable for me in 2 years or so that I can learn it? And they said, yes, it would be something that I could take on.
So we wouldn't have that huge programming cost necessarily if you were to learn a
It could be you or your elections clerk.
or
correct?
other people.
Yes.
Okay, I have another question. Does it matter? Obviously, we're a county that we have like the school elections where we cross county lines. Does it matter that Saginaw's on using the same equipment program that Gratiot does, that Clinton does, no, doesn't matter?
No, I don't believe it does.
Okay.
But our surrounding counties are going to Dominion.
That's what I heard too.
And so why would I not, as someone who's brand new, and look to the other counties and saying, what are you doing? They know what they're doing. It's been the topic of conversation at the last any kind of conference or meeting I've had with the county clerk.
Do you know, and maybe you do, maybe you don't, in these other counties, have these clerks had the same resistance from the locals? From their local clerks?
Some have.
So you're not alone then?
No.
Are you up for the challenge?
I think we gotta move forward. I call the question, we gotta move forward and
Okay, we have
do
a
it.
motion and support. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All in favor of this motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed?
Aye.
Who are the three?
Let's do roll
Marks,
call.
Root,
Bart's.
Marks.
Okay.
Question was called, there was further discussion, I never got to say anything, so.
Neither.
Motion moves forward. Item H. It was 4-3, correct?
Yes.
H. Item H.
I move to consider authorizing the 2016 budget amendments, number 16-17-4.4, number 16-17-4.5, number 16-17-4.7, number 16-17-4.14, and number 16-17-4.17.
Second.
You have motion and support. Any discussion?
Just to be clear, these were detailed in the committee meetings, and Patty responded and clarified what they were doing.
Correct. Any more discussion? Hearing none. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion move forward. Item I.
I move to consider authorizing the Sheriff's Department to hire a deputy to fill a vacancy conditional on the approval of the assignment of a deputy to the friend of the court's office. The deputy would be compensated under the existing bargaining unit contract rates.
Second.
Motion and support. Any discussion?
Yeah, this is an added agenda item that we put on, but it was something that needed to coincide with the front of the court deputy being moved out of the sheriff's office, so we want to be able to fill that existing position that he's going to be vacating immediately. So we're just kind of rolling them. It's already funded, it'll already be there. Front of the court's the one we'll be adding the additional funding for the new. So we just wanted to make sure there was no lag in getting that deputy back on the road.
Thank you. Any other questions? Hearing none. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Mr. Chair?
Motion move forward.
That concludes my report.
Thank you. Public safety and courts would be Commissioner Bartz, but there are no items of business. So we'll move on to Health and Human Services.
Okay, item A, I move that we consider authorizing the health department to hire an intern for personal community health at a pay rate of $12 an hour with no fringe benefits, and authorize Larry Johnson, Health Director, to sign all necessary documents.
Second.
We have a motion and support. Any discussion, questions? Larry's here to answer any. Hearing none. All in favor of the motion indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion move forward.
Item B, I move to consider appointing Charles W. Dodge, LPC, CAADC, and CC to the Shiawassee County Community Mental Health Authority Board for the period of March 16, 2017 to March 31st, 2020, or until a successor is appointed, and authorize the board chair to execute all necessary documents.
Second.
Motion and support. Any discussion? Hearing none. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion moves forward.
Mr. Chair, if I may, just backing up to the previous item, since we have the benefit of having Mr. Johnson here, I'm just curious specifically what the intern will be doing, and if you have somebody in mind.
Yeah, not yet. We have a grant, a return child health grant. So we're going to be specifically focusing on maternal depression, specifically young mothers. We've seen the news recently, we've had some problems in this county, so we're going to have an intern working on that project with some additional money for the state grant that we received. So, our director of personnel health is a real go-getter, bringing some money. I think it's a real beneficial. Sure.
Great, thank you.
Okay, item C, move to consider appointing John Horvath to the Shiawassee County Community Mental Health Authority Board effective March 16, 2017 to March 31st, 2020, or until a successor is appointed, and authorize the board chair to execute all necessary documents.
Second.
We have motion and support. Any questions? Any further discussion? Hearing none. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion moves forward.
Okay, item D, move to consider reappointing Jeannie Ladd to the Shiawassee County Community Mental Health Authority Board for the period of March 16, 2017 to March 31st, 2020, or until a successor is appointed, and authorize the board chair to execute all necessary documents.
Support.
Motion and support. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion moves forward.
Item E, consider reappointing Janelle Hughes, LMSW, to the Shiawassee County Community Mental Health Authority Board for the period of March 16, 2017 through March 31st, 2020, or until a successor is appointed, and authorize the board chair to execute all necessary documents.
Support.
Motion and support. Any discussion? Hearing none. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Mr. Chair, that concludes my report.
Thank you. Mr. Chair.
I just have a consent agenda that I'd like to make a motion to move to consent agenda items on econ and physical development, A, D, E, and F, finance and administration, A, B, C, H, and health and human services, B, C, D, and E.
Jeez, you're
We
on
have a
too
motion
fast.
and support.
I wrote them down, so I can.
Any discussion? Hearing none. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Aye.
6 to 1, motion moves forward.
That's all I had.
Thank you, sir. Any other agenda items?
I'd just like to back up to an earlier discussion the commission had, how appointments are made to serve on various boards around the county. Certainly wasn't my intent to make anyone stumble. And as long as I sit up here, it will never be my intent or goal to make any of my fellow colleagues or commissioners look bad and question the decisions they made. To clarify, it was simply understanding how those appointment processes have worked historically. And without making too much work going forward, there's a few things we can do to get just a little bit more information in the event that we do have multiple candidates applying for a single vacancy. So it was in the spirit of transparency and making government work better overall. And I'll leave it at that.
Appreciate it, Commissioner.
I don't disagree. If you were to come up with some sort of just kind of a broad form, you know, with maybe some questions or something that maybe this board could approve, I don't see any big problem with having just a little more discrepancy and a little bit more background information on these people. I don't think it'd be that much more work. And if they want to be on these boards, even if they're unexperienced, if they just give us a little more background stuff, I don't see why we couldn't do something like that.
Thank you, Commissioner Bartz. I'm happy to, and again, just a few simple questions we might ask for all appointments for folks interested, and also kind of level the playing field across county departments. I understand we have a screening process in place for the mental health board, but not for planning and zoning. And is there a way, you know, we might look at that or standardize that or not? I understand the challenge with getting people to volunteer in certain vacancies, and I don't want to, you know, turn people away already with the challenges we have. So I'll spend a little time thinking about that and consider bringing something before the commission's consideration.
Just to be clear, the mental health is the only authority that recommends their people. And I think that's because they're a separate entity from the county, so they have their interview process.
I'm on the mental health board. A couple of these people have been on there a long time, and I'm on the nominating committee, and we're supposed to meet next week. We got 4 people that are absent right now, so you just don't have a bunch of people running for.
That's an important board that we just had, so.
Yeah, we have a $17 million budget over there, so. I don't know if people don't know that, but I was shocked, so.
Pretty complicated.
And I'm not sure if I need to make a motion or if somebody else needs to do this, but in light of Mr. Shepherd's comments and Mr. Schneider's comments and some information I've been given today, I would like to have the board set up some kind of a subcommittee so we can investigate the past activities of the VA stuff and current operations and everything. There's a lot of allegations, there's a lot of stuff that's been flying around for like a decade. We've all seen it in the newspapers. But I feel as for good government, we definitely need to do that. I would be willing to sit on it and serve on it, but I'm not exactly sure the legality of how we set that up and how that's done. So I request that we move forward with that, though.
I just think, these 4 years I've been here, these allegations have come and come and come. The other side has never presented any proof, and that's been the problem. If Mr. Snyder and his group ever does come up with a proof, I guess it's more to look at, but.
No, I mean, I feel comfortable. If we set up a committee, I spend 60 days or 90 days, we figure out if something's there, if it's there, it's there, if it's not, it's not, and we figure out where we go from there. And I think it's probably our responsibility to.
My suggestion would be the Health and Human Services Chair,
Yeah.
it falls under.
Thank you, sir.
And his 2 committee members become the committee that start the investigation.
Okay.
And what members are those?
I believe Commissioner Marks and Commissioner Bruff.
That's what I
I think we
thought.
should probably have the board chair involved too. So you're welcome.
Then we have a quorum.
Oh, that's true. You can take my spot.
If I may, semantics are important, and I might stop short of calling it an investigation, but it's simply a review.
Look into it.
Okay, that's fine, yeah. I would feel more comfortable if we did a review.
I agree.
See what's out there, talk to some folks, ask for, go through books, ask for documentation on all sorts of stuff and see what we come up with.
Any other commissioner comments before we go to public comments? You see how I just replaced that other agenda item with commissioner comments there? All right, hearing none, we'll move to the second session of public comments, and I believe I already have someone up there.
Once the time is up, it's only 20 minutes.
Pardon?
Hey, I know where you live too, shut up.
Mr. Schweiter. Oh, the whole thing, gotcha.
It's in English, you'll be able to read it.
I hope so.
I know you're from Byron. As far as, this thing about 4 years has been going on a lot longer than that. And the last board refused to show, allow me to show any information. Point being, his first page is it's a letter written to our past board chair, Mr. Howley, and it states, I see some VA references, I see some FOIA issues, I see some illegal use of county funds, fraud issues. We don't really have an AG division for that. Les is able to file suit in circuit court for the FOIA problem, and of course putting public pressure on the issue. That is after reviewing the paperwork that I sent to the Attorney General. That was their opinion, is that it warranted further investigation. Then there's a letter that I put in there from 2015 trying to explain all of this.
Excuse me, if I may, you sent this email here to Harper Allen?
He would not, Mr. Allen would not admit to the gentleman's name, other than he worked in the Attorney General's office. What can I say? He's young.
I'll find out for you.
He's,
Well, let's not implicate Mr. Hartman, he's not here to defend himself.
yeah.
Let that go.
Anyway, a couple pages into it, you'll come across this page. It says 2014 budget worksheet. The fund is 101 General Department Veterans Affairs. From 2010 through 2014. It shows Department 682 Veterans Affairs revenues. Reimbursement from Veterans Relief Fund, and that's the money was transferred from the Veterans Relief Fund into the General Fund, the 101, which is also on the top left corner. And below it, it's got a list of items going from veterans' permanent salaries, per diem, salaries, subcontract, FICA, health, and a bunch of other things. As is to a grand total of just short of $140,000. So money was taken by this paperwork, was taken out of the Veterans Relief Fund, the 214, transferred into the general fund, and then right back into the VA office for paychecks and benefits. Problem being, Mr. Markson would be aware of this too, is that in 2017, he requested a clarification letter from Cole Stoker and Ms. Bonnie Toski. Says in response to a request for opinion on whether a county may lawfully expend county veterans service program millage funds to pay personnel salaries and all this other. For the service, you can use that money. That's what it was says for. But it also says in here, and I can't put my finger right on it right off the bat, it says, thus millage funds may only be used for purposes which are authorized by the voters. The millage, the 214 millage, is strictly for emergency use for veterans and their dependents. So taking money out of the Veterans Relief Fund into the general fund and then using it for paychecks and benefits, it says you can't do that. It's fairly clear, as is, and you can read through it and, you know, come to your own decisions. There was in 2012 another attorney opinion from Ms. Toski. And it was written in a very gray area. It says you can, but you can't, you know, it's one of those, you know, lawyer things. They try to go both sides and not really come to a firm decision on either way. Sorry, Mike. Okay. As is in part of it, it says on the second page, the Board of Commissioners has no direct authority to expend these millage funds. As is, and it is in a gray zone, as is, and in here it states that you can use some of the money to reimburse what has been done for the, like for the time spent for the office personnel, phones, setting up appointments, doing paperwork and stuff like that. But it has to be very carefully documented. The problem was, it was not documented. It was written down on a calendar, 8 hours a day for the entire staff. And that's what the money, they claimed was justification for using the 214 money. But in 2014, says you can't do that, you know, misuse funds.
Can we wrap this up, please?
Pardon me?
Can we wrap it up?
Yes.
Please.
Anyway, it's all in there. You each got a packet of 3 things. You got both attorney opinions. And I would love the opportunity to show all the other paperwork that I have, because I too was a finance chair, as is, and I collected a great deal of paperwork on where the money went, where the money did not go, and what the VA committee is being paid. There's a lot of questions, as is, and I don't believe that they can justify it all. And that's why I'm asking for your consideration.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
I have a couple questions of the commissioners and the staff. Mr. Chairman?
I'm thinking, it's public comment.
I wouldn't.
Let's hold up.
Okay.
Any other public comment?
Along with that, if you turn on to page 3, I believe it is, there's a sizable number of over $2 million that are spent on salaries that should have been going to veterans in need. In the past, the office has turned veterans away for needing a furnace or a roof or whatever the need was. And for that $2 million could have come in handy for guys and gals that needed it badly. I want to thank you for bringing this up. It eases my heart and my mind on the subject. I hope something can come of it. Last month, I also introduced a proposal banning further corruption from past commissioners and county officials, be appointed or hired or whatever in a county capacity. Individuals that are responsible for allowing this to continue to go on are either on committees or have been appointed or soon to be appointed, as noted today in community mental health. Continue to let this go on. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other public comments?
Yes, one. The sheriff, if he would like to let us know about his
Oh, I didn't see him back.
his position he's going to replace.
Just want you to know, as you consider the front of the court
position, there may be another benefit that comes out of it. I don't want to say it's hinged on this, but if the front of the court position is filled and we end up hiring another deputy, we've recently had a veteran K-9 officer from another department with his dog that has expressed interest in that position. So I anticipate that I would be bringing him onto the sheriff's department. We've had one in the past that served a vital role tracking lost kids, armed robbers, community events, detection of drugs and things like that. So I'm anticipating that would happen. He's the one that approached us about it. I just want you to have that information.
Thank you.
Yes. Be a good asset that the county could get back.
Is that?
I said it'd be a very good asset that the county could get back.
Any more public comment? I'm gonna bring it back to the commission, even though we've had Chairman Root open the bag.
Mr. Chairman, can I make one comment?
Yes, sir.
When it comes to using those funds for employees, this county has formed a department of County Department of Veterans Affairs under Act 192. And part of that act is the committee shall appoint a veteran service officer and such other employees as shall be necessary to carry out the provisions of this act. The employees are paid. And they shall appoint them, they shall pay. Out of that, which ones are included in that.
Is there a guide as to how much they're paid that you're aware of? Any other commissioner comments at this time? You had one, didn't you? You did.
It was related to, I just wondered, and I think I'll just save it and let the committee do their work and they would be able to address that, sort of tell the story historically. I was curious if it's still happening and if we find out what's going on. I'll just save it for the committee.
All right. Do we have a motion? We have a motion to adjourn?
Second.
Second? Meeting adjourned.